Welcome to Pep Talks with Jeanne. I'm your host, Jeanne Pepper. I started doing Pep Talks as a way to inspire you to do intentional acts of kindness and to further the goals of #BlazeItForward. Since its inception, Pep Talks has evolved, and now I use it to interview people actively making a difference in this world through their volunteerism, community service, or careers. My guests are all here because they have dedicated their lives to making this world a better place. Join us as we delve into the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of these truly inspiring and hardworking people. This season, we will be using a panel format in some of our episodes to bring together synergistic guests to discuss topics that weave the social fabric of the world around us. Welcome to another episode of Pep Talks with Jeanne. My first guest today is Jojo Savea, who came to me through my friend Ann Norman. Ann Norman works for a company called Sorensen, which is a company that specializes in helping people that are in the hearing impaired and deaf community. I hope that is the politically correct way to say that.
And just to jump in, actually, hearing impaired isn't a politically correct statement. We prefer this being called deaf and or hard of hearing.
Perfect. I'm so glad that was clarified for me because I am ignorant. So I will learn from this interview also. I'm going to be speaking a little slower today for my guests who are hearing only. It may seem like I'm speaking a little more slowly than usual, but I'm doing that because this is actually being done with an interpreter for Jojo because she is part of the deaf community. And as such, she has Nathan, her interpreter, helping her. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see Nathan as part of this podcast as well. And if you're part of the deaf community, we're delighted to have you here today. I'm thrilled that we are able to bring our communities together so that we can learn from each other. I hope that this isn't the last time that we are able to bring people together to learn from each other that are from different worlds in some ways, but yet we are from the same place and we should understand and appreciate the challenges that we all have in this world. When you are listening to the interpreter speak, you will hear a male voice, although Jojo is very female, very pretty smile, and she has a very colorful bedroom in the background behind her, which if you tune in on YouTube, you will have the pleasure of seeing. If you are listening only on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you might notice that we will be pausing frequently while I wait for the interpreter to catch up in signing Jojo. And to make things move a little bit faster, we've provided Jojo and hopefully the interpreter as well with the questions ahead of time. We're going to go in order to keep things simple and to help things move along. And we may also edit out. We will not edit out any of Nathan's signing on the YouTube version of this recording, but we will be editing that out for the audio only version so that we can make it move more fluidly and there will be less interruptions for the hearing community. And now we'll start with a brief introduction by me of our beautiful guest, Jojo Savea. Jojo shines as a vibrant voice and advocate within the deaf community, sharing her experiences and insights as a deaf content creator. You can see her work on Instagram, among other places. And she will be providing us with all of the places that she creates content. And we will have those platforms and the ways that you can access them available to you on my website and also on the platform that you are listening to this on today. Or if you're not listening to it, you may be watching it and you'll be able to see where she is uploading her content. Her connection to the parent infant program at the Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind reveals a deep commitment to nurturing early development and providing crucial support to deaf children and their families. This dedication likely stems from her own journey and understanding of the unique needs and potential within the deaf world. Her time at Utah State University, particularly her involvement in the global learning experience in Peru, offers a glimpse into her adventurous spirit and her desire to connect with diverse cultures. Working on a small enterprise development project while reflecting on her own educational path as a deaf individual underscores her resilience, adaptability, and thoughtful perspective. Jojo Savea's multifaceted experiences paint a picture of a passionate advocate, a dedicated supporter, and an engaged global citizen. Jojo, is there anything you would like to add to that?
Yeah. And currently I'm working at Sorensen. Uh, I'm their actual social media manager and also a uh, influencer partner for the past 5 years. Plus, I'm a content creator on social media.
Okay. So, being a content creator on social media is a separate project in addition to the work that you do with Sorensen.
Correct.
Oh, that is great to know. Super. Okay, so then if there's anything else that you'd like our listeners to know, now would be a good time. Otherwise, if you have any questions or need any clarification before we start, we'll jump right into the first question I have for you.
Yeah, no, I would love to add that I'm a deaf Samoan. I grew up and I moved throughout the country from different states and actually from different countries. I actually lived in Samoa for just a short time, but all of those experiences really accumulate into the person I am today.
Can you tell us more about your experience as a deaf person in terms of were you born as a deaf person, or did this happen later in your childhood or in your life?
Yeah, when I was born in Hawaii, and the moment I was born, I was deaf. We don't know why. We don't know if it's genetic. We just know that I was deaf. My parents were completely shocked. They didn't know what to do. They actually took me to three different doctors to not only get a second opinion, but a third to know that I am deaf. But my mom immediately off the bat knew that I needed access to language. So we moved back to Samoa for my first 3 years. I didn't have American Sign Language. I didn't have access to verbal communication. It was 3 years of gesturing with the community around me. So I would point to what I wanted in those initial years of my life. When I wanted to play with a toy, my mom would then gesture back, and that was our form of communication. And then at 3 years old, I moved to Minnesota. That's where I got my first surgery to receive a cochlear implant. And that's when I received speech therapy. I started going to that. I also got my deaf mentor who came to my home and taught me and my family how to use American Sign Language and English in the household. And I started my language development there. And so you mentioned that I used to work for the PIP program or the Parent Infant Program. And so I felt like I came full circle when I was taking on that role, which was really heartfelt.
I can see how that would be an important part of your development as a human to be able to give back to the community that helped you so much.
Absolutely.
Um, Gosh, I have so many questions for you.
All
Uh,
right, I'm excited. Bring them on.
um, how long did it take you to learn American Sign Language?
I'm still learning. I hope I am. What I mean by that is at 3 years old, I learned the foundations. I picked up language. But I mean, it's hard. I mean, aren't we all continuing to learn English, right?
Yes, I often think to myself that I don't even speak English as well as I possibly could. How could I learn another language too?
Right?
But yeah, it's challenging to learn languages. And English alone is a very difficult language to learn, in addition to having to learn how to sign it. When I was in college, my husband was doing research on cochlear implants. That was a long time ago. I remember the day he came home from class and he said that he was going to be working with this new technology. And they were hoping that someday people would be able to hear that had never heard before with this implant. I am so thrilled to see that you were one of the recipients of that technology and the research that was done at UC Santa Barbara, among other great learning institutions. What does the cochlear implant do for you?
No, I appreciate the history with cochlear implants. I have so many thoughts that I often find myself in a rabbit hole about. With my cochlear implant, it helps me hear. I see it more as a tool for myself. For example, I put it on and it's great to have, but I don't rely on it, right? I survive with or without it. But it is very helpful to have as many resources as you can, right? Have access to American Sign Language, to be able to receive audio inputs, or be able to have my cochlear on while I'm watching a movie. I love being able to access any type of music, so absolutely love it.
I know that you can't compare what you hear with a cochlear implant with what a hearing person can hear. But have you ever asked anyone who has one that could hear before they had a cochlear implant how it differentiates between real hearing or hearing that I would have as a hearing person? Do you know?
Actually, I have. So it is hard to compare. I don't have any baseline or residual hearing, but I did have some friends who did, and they told me it sounded a little bit more robotic. There was no tone, right? We don't get the intonation that we normally would have with baseline hearing, and so it just was
Mhm.
very flat and robotic. But for me, that's my normal.
That's so interesting. Is it something that creates a sound in your mind or in your ear?
Yes and no to that. It's connected to, so your brain recognizes sound. And based on speech therapy, right, I was able to understand what the cochlear implant inputs were, and my brain had to learn how to interpret those into meaning. And so it takes time to get used to somebody's voice. So let's take an example. If I never heard an airplane before and I had a cochlear implant and I heard it, it would be hard for me to identify what that is. I would have to then see the plane, so they would sign it, which is the sign
Oh,
airplane. Then they would fingerspell airplane, and then I would be able to see it and then associate that hearing to the airplane. Ah, yeah, so cool. So I grew up, again, so much training went behind this to make these auditory connections throughout my life and to get by with day-to-day conversation. But if you put me in a classroom, for example, and in a specialized class, I wouldn't be able to keep track. So with my mom, I heard her all the time. So when I heard her, it was fantastic. I understood exactly what she was saying. But when my dad came home, he wasn't in the house all the time, and he would start to speak to me. I didn't always catch every word.
very interesting. I suppose you sleep well even when it's noisy at your house.
Okay, what? Yeah, lucky. Absolutely. My husband gets grumpy about that, let me tell you. He has to put up with the dogs crying. Maybe they're barking at something that's outside, and I'm just passed out.
Oh, that's funny. For those of you who are listening, I have been doing a very small amount of American Sign Language to JoJo in my answers because when I was probably in about the fourth grade, I was lucky enough to learn how to sign by an older relative who was taking an American Sign Language class at the time. And she taught me how to sign language, but just the alphabet so I can spell. I'm a speller, which is
I
helpful.
mean, still, that's fantastic. We love to
Yeah,
see people learning. We don't ask to learn an entire language, just learning some of it is heartfelt and it shows that you care enough to put effort in. Most people don't. So even when we see the ABCs on your hand, we love that you're making the effort to bridge that communication gap.
it's funny because even though I learned it when I was probably about 9 years old, I have never had the opportunity to use it before with a deaf person.
Really,
And you should have seen JoJo's eyes
well,
if you're just listening when I said that. She couldn't believe
I'm your first deaf
it.
person.
Yes, I never, but I still remember how to do it, even after all these years, and I'm 54 now. So that just shows you never know what you might be able to do. You think if you think you can't remember how to do things that you learned when you were young, you may surprise yourself even. Going to now head right into our questions. I know that we're going to have a lot of follow-up questions for you, Jojo, probably from my listeners too. So if anybody is listening to this and has a follow-up question for Jojo, please send it to us here at Pep Talks because we could definitely get Jojo back on the show. I think she would probably love to hear what kinds of questions people in the hearing community and people in the deaf community, because they may be watching as well and have some questions for you too.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, maybe you could get my husband on the show too.
well, I did want him on the show, but there's so much to talk about. We will be just working with JoJo today.
Right?
And next time we will get your husband on because I'm sure we all have lots of questions for him, what it's like living with somebody in the deaf community. It must be uh, probably nicer for JoJo because if he's causing her some annoyance, all she has to do is go in another room. You can just pretend he's not there.
Literally last night, I got home from New York City and he started talking about, oh, one of your husband, wife, your type of argument, right? And you're supposed to support his argument. And I was like, honestly, hon, I'm not listening. I don't have it in me. So I just started to close my eyes.
Yeah, that works.
Yep.
Yeah, lucky. But that also brings up an important point, which is it takes a lot of concentration and alertness to communicate when you are deaf, which we take for granted in the hearing community. So,
That's for sure. That is
yeah.
something that me and my husband navigate often. We definitely have to put more effort behind our communications and it has to be more intentional. I mean, he learned American Sign Language for me. He's been 5 years in the language and is continuing to learn and grow right by my side.
How did you meet him?
Tinder.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it was unintentional for a date. One of my friends actually downloaded Tinder for me on my behalf, and they were actually looking. His friends were trying to improve his profile, so that was all happening at the same time. And so they swiped right on my picture. And I got my phone back, and I deleted Tinder. And I was like, I'm not looking for anything serious. And right before that, my now husband sent me a message and was like, hey, your Samoan rugby team sucks. Ireland is way better. And I was like, whoa, excuse me. And let's just say I kept the app before I deleted it. He asked me on a date, and I was like, do you know ASL? And he's like, no. I was like, you know I'm deaf, right? He was like, so? And 5 years later, we are now married, and the rest is history. We have been beyond happy together.
That is the best story ever. I love that.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
That's beautiful. Um, Before we start with the questions, are there any questions in these that you would like to start with, or do you want to just start and go in order?
Honestly, let's go ahead and just do it in order. They're all great questions. It'd be impossible to choose where to start.
Okay, very well. And if there's any time at the end, I would love to go back and learn more about you and your husband, and then we'll hear your side, because who cares what his side is now? But we can get his side later. That
Exactly.
that
It's
might
my
be
side.
fun too. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
And
So anything else before we
oh,
start?
oh, good.
Okay. All right. So let's dive right into it then. Your work with the parent infant program at the Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind is impactful. What are some of the key insights you've gained from supporting deaf children and their families in their early years?
Start as soon as possible while they're young. That with that PIP program starting, people didn't realize that the earlier you can start, the better their outcomes. I mean, that makes a world of a difference. That's where I really had that wow factor, right? Being able to come into their home and provide language. I felt like I was not only invited, but it was an honor to me to really see the parents have those light bulb moments of, oh, that's how I connect with my deaf child.
Mm, right.
That is beyond heartwarming.
So from the for the hearing community to know, if you have a child that is born deaf, it's important to learn sign language as soon as possible so that you can begin the process of teaching your child how to communicate effectively in this world. And with you?
Absolutely. You hit that right
Yeah.
on the head. I
Yeah.
often work with many parents who typically, I know most are in the hearing community and they are scared, they're overwhelmed. There's so much information coming at them. And right off the bat, they use the word failed, right? They failed their hearing test. And so parents get home and they don't know where to start. And what I always tell them is the first step is doing your best and give them language. And you figure out the rest as you go on.
What percentage of children that are deaf is it known right away? And what is the average length of time that it takes for families to figure it out?
I know before some technology started, hearing tests weren't part of the discharge procedure coming out of um, a birth. And so normally it took some time to realize that the child wasn't responding to sound. Now it is a mandate that all hospitals test for hearing immediately. But again, I would not be 100% confident in that. I know here in Utah, we require that before discharge of the newborn, that they have to take a hearing test.
Yeah. And if they are not given a hearing test, then it could be It could be a while before a parent figures it out. Yeah. And that's
Exactly.
valuable time that a parent could have been using to learn sign language.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So that's really important for those in the hearing community to learn sign language, either just learn it because it's fun or because you could just learn it so that you can speak to someone in the deaf community one day and you're doing their podcast.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay. Um, as a deaf content creator, what are some of the unique opportunities and challenges you face in sharing your perspective and connecting with a wider audience?
That's a great question. I think through as a content creator, if it wasn't for this, I would have had less opportunities to share who I am. And so I use it as a medium to share that. Some of the challenges is that observers like to put things in boxes, put people in boxes, add labels, right? I'm not just deaf. I'm Samoan. I'm fun. I love to travel. I really dabble in so many things. And I want to show people that I'm not just a deaf person. That's not the label that I reside under. There's a lot more to a human being than just that. Is it a big part of my identity? Absolutely. So it's very interesting to navigate some of those conversations. So it's been pretty
And
exciting.
I imagine that you are creating content for your work that is applicable to maybe 100% the deaf community. But do you also try to create content in your social media as an influencer that will reach the hearing community so that we can learn about your life and your challenges?
Yeah. So we work mostly on my corporate side working with social media to the deaf communities, right? But then in my personal side, I love bridging that gap, right? That's why we're here today on your podcast, right? We're bringing those worlds together. And I'm noticing that the narrative is shifting, right? The uh I'm and it's becoming more of a challenge to recognize people who are Pacific Islanders. Like my contact is shifting less from being deaf and more to who am I as a Pacific Islander, right? Because there's no one place, there's no one resource for what life is like as a deaf person who is a Pacific Islander, right? There's resources out there or other role models of what is it like to be a deaf person of color who is Asian or Latin, but my content has really shifted to what is it life like as a deaf Pacific Islander.
That's really interesting because you do have that intersection there. I don't even know what it's like to be a hearing Pacific Islander.
Right?
So bring it on. I'll learn about both.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very fascinating. Like, I've always been, okay, I'm part of the Hearing Pacific Islander demographic, right? That's my family. That's my aunts, uncles, cousins. But there was a delineation there, right? And then I would be with the deaf community at large. And I'm noticing that I'm starting to really align in my identity as a deaf Pacific Islander.
Are there very many of you?
Yes and no. Uh, Like I grew up, I didn't know that there was another one. I thought I was the only one until I was about 14 years old. Uh, Now, the more I create content, I'm being reached out to by more and more, and I don't know where they were hiding before then.
What percentage of the general population is deaf?
That's a great question. I do not know.
We can Google it. We'll put that number right
Perfect. Yeah, let's
here.
do
It's going
that.
to be sitting right there above my finger when we edit this. Okay. We'll have the answer for everyone right there. Okay. Um, for those of you who are listening on Spotify and Audi and Apple Podcasts, we are removing some of the uh, lag in our communication because we are using a male interpreter, Nathan. So when you do hear the voice of Jojo, you're actually hearing Nathan speak for her. And if you watch on YouTube, you'll be able to see Nathan signing. He's got a beautiful smile, very nice looking man. And he is communicating for JoJo with her. And you can see his hands, all of the beautiful sign language. It's a very expressive language. I wish I could understand, but it's also a very intuitive language I'm noticing because I'm watching him speak for me right now, and it's very easy to understand what I can see. So I just wanted to make sure that for those of you who are joining in midway, that you understood what was going on here and that you wouldn't stop listening because you couldn't understand it. But that's what's happening here. And we're learning quite a bit actually from JoJo about what it's like to be in the deaf community, the Samoan community, and to be married now to someone in the hearing community, which I'm sure has all of its own unique challenges. And I'm sure it's been a lot of fun also learning from each other's life experience. We're going to move on to the third question that we have pre-written to make it a little bit easier for Jojo and her interpreter. The third question we have for you is, can you tell us more about your experience during the global learning experience that you did in Peru? How did your identity as a deaf individual shape your interactions and learning during that time? How did it change it? Do you know?
Yeah, most hearing people in the community would be surprised by this. It's actually easier to travel internationally as a deaf person. And the reason
That
is we are so native to gesturing, right? Working across language barriers. And it's kind of funny. There's probably 10 or 13 of us who were in that group and professors, and all of which were hearing. And I had two interpreters with me. Thank you to USU for providing accessibility. And so we got there, and there was an assignment that the professor decided to establish, and he really wanted us to get out into uh, the community and get out into Peru and really meet the locals and film our interactions with the locals. The goal is to really push us out of our comfort zone. But it's kind of funny because I live out of my comfort zone all day, every day. So I am easily identified as a Samoan deaf girl, right? So I embraced it. And so there was the three of us, me and my two interpreters, and we saw a group of kids playing volleyball outside. It was an after school event, something that they were doing, and the ball came over out of bounds, and I decided to grab it and just start playing with them. So we started volleying back and forth while the hearing participants of that group were just on the sidelines, not knowing how to engage. And so I really bridged that gap. I was like, come on over here. And so I pointed something like their hair was done beautifully. And so I'd let them know that I really like it. Or I was going to sub out somebody to come and play. So I point at them and like, hey, get over here. And then uh, that girl who had beautiful hair, I was like, hey, come and do mine. So she would sit there and braid it. And then the girl was like, hey, my dad is, and this is a sign, gesture sign for being deaf. And I was like, oh, I'm deaf too, using the same sign that she provided. And so we started bridging that communication gap, which was amazing. And so And when it was time to show our film, right, to the class, the professor was like, his jaw hit the floor. You, and so while the other kids were going over and interacting with people at the store or maybe a barber, the professor was like, you really engaged and you had that immediate connection with that girl who was playing volleyball. So it was really amazing, right? I've spent a lot of my life navigating communication and adapting to the world around me. So when it comes to international travel, I already have that skill set. And so a lot of hearing people don't know how to navigate between Spanish and English because it's a spoken language. But because I take spoken language out of the equation and I just move straight to gestures, we're on equal playing fields.
Oh, it's not a bad thing to know how to do sign language, even for hearing people. If we all knew how to do it, it would make international travel much easier. Are there devices now that you can use, or that I think hearing people can use to translate language? E- Do they have something similar that you can use? Maybe that Sorensen. I don't know exactly how Sorensen fits into the equation of helping people that are deaf, but is there something that you're using to help you also when you go out into the world?
That's a great question. I don't know if there's anyone out there who has a translation tool specific to sign languages. I don't think there's a perfect dictionary out there for all sign languages in the world.
So,
There are bits and
oh,
pieces, but each country has their own nuanced language, right? For
oh, so,
example,
oh,
uh, they have their own nuanced languages. But let's look at Duolingo, right? They gather these dictionaries and they teach terms, they teach how to turn those terms into sentences. But I don't know of any resource or technology out there that does the same thing for signed languages.
that's interesting.
So if you do know of one, please let me know. Or if any of our listeners know of one, please let me know.
Okay. So there are different sign languages depending on where you are from in the world. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not
Hmm.
one sign language that everyone uses. Okay.
No. So there is actually over 200 different sign languages globally. Like I am learning Korean Sign Language right now myself.
Oh,
But for the global community, there is a sign that's called International Sign, but it's not official. It is not globally recognized. It's a sign for us to be able to understand one another when we come together on global stages. It's a way to communicate, but it's not perfect. It doesn't have its own grammar structure or its own rules and nuances.
interesting. Okay. Um, is there anything else that you took away from your time in Peru?
The culture is beautiful there. The food is delicious, and it was really great for me to work with my hearing peers during that time. That was beautiful for me because I was able to really navigate and continue to get to know them.
Very cool. What are the some of the common misconceptions about the deaf community that you actively work to dispel through your advocacy?
One person, an experience of my own, right? I can't have a shared experience for all deaf persons, so I'm just going to speak from mine. I can hear pretty well through my cochlear implant. Um, I can lip read pretty well, but I try to avoid using those tools right off the bat to get to know somebody because sometimes, for example, I'm your first deaf person that you've been interacting with directly, people will assume that the access to me is the same for to access all deaf persons. And so that's something that I really want to be able to show is that we're not all the same as a deaf person. We don't access language or the world around us the same way. We are multifaceted, multi-layered individuals, and we have our own identities that we express to the world around us.
Would it be hard for you to have a career in science where there are a lot of technical terms that might not have American Sign Language attached to them? Are there deaf people that can do this work or that do it? Do you know?
There are actually, there is a group, an organization where they develop signs, like what you were just saying. There are specific terms used in science, right? So this organization is working actively to increase the language in American Sign Language to have the equivalency that we see in English. So deaf
Oh,
people can be in any career. I know there's a deaf individual who works at NASA. We have deaf doctors across the country. And so we are in every field and we're able to navigate them all.
oh, that's very cool. How has how have computers made it easier for you as a deaf person?
Just to clarify, generally, or are you talking about specifically for accessibility?
Great question. I'm just thinking about when I was growing up and we didn't have computers because I'm old, but I can only imagine how being able to type something on a phone and show it to somebody would really make things so much easier in interacting with the hearing community. I'm I'm wondering, is that something that you were able to use with your husband before he learned American Sign Language? Or is that a way that you are able to communicate with the hearing community? Do you use your phone? Do you use computers? I mean, that's how you met your husband. You used a computer. That wouldn't have been possible in the 70s.
Got it. Yeah. Uh, by the way, you do not look as old as you were saying you are. I
Thank
was
you.
born in 1997. And so that generation, really, technology wasn't the best. I remember that there weren't captions, right? So I missed out on a lot there. And
Mm.
so I didn't really have a phone early on. And so I had to write notes back and forth to people. But imagine yourself at a party. It'd be very frustrating to be carrying a pad of paper and a pen to a party, trying to communicate and try to fit in, right? So technology has helped so much to access places that I haven't been before. And my phone is my best friend, right? When it comes to ordering food, I type out my order and show it to the person at the register, right? I remember on our first date, me and my husband were on an iPhone notes app, and we just constantly just text back and forth. And I'd be like, "What's your favorite movie?" And then he would type it all out, and then we just go back and forth. And that was the entire duration of our date. So technology definitely has improved accessibility and communication before with face before FaceTime, my mom would have to kind of uh, interpret for me. But now with FaceTime, we have live captions on the FaceTime interface. So I call my parents more now than I ever did before. I call my grandparents more than I ever did before because of that technology, which is fantastic.
Oh, that's incredible. So you can just use a regular iPhone and
Mm-hmm.
it's got the captioning right there when someone speaks, so you can read it.
Yep,
That's amazing. So
exactly. I mean, it is so
theoretically,
nice.
we could have done our
And
interview that way, Jojo.
But I mean, one con is it's hard for me because then I have to text everything back to you, right? So you were able to provide it verbally, so it's one way, right? I can only receive the information through captioning. Hopefully someday that can become a two-way solution, but then I would have to type everything back to you.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But then Nathan will be out of a job. So for now, we're okay with it just the way that it is. Um,
Right.
um, what role do you see technology and digital platforms bringing uh, it or in bridging communication gaps and fostering inclusivity for the deaf community? Kind of along the same lines as my last question.
Yeah. One thing I would did want to add was it helps, excuse me. I've noticed that technology really does help a little bit to take away the voice inside your head, right? Of how much work is this going to take? Or what should I expect to happen? And so I'm able to breathe a little bit. I'm able to have less anxiety walking into situations, knowing that technology is there to help bridge that gap.
Yeah. Are there specific initiatives or projects within the deaf community that you are particularly excited about or that you believe deserve more attention?
Yes, I love that. So we're in the process of setting up a national deaf Pacific Islander organization. So I'm really excited for this. Just it just recently happened where I felt like we could really use that as a resource to refer to. If you ever need to know what is life like as a deaf Pacific Islander or being able to see that, it's a resource, right? My opportunity with Moana to be able to sign and be a match for that community. We didn't have that before.
For my listeners, is there a connection between you and Disney and the Moana movies?
No, but there's an organization called Sign Up Captions. And so they are a Google Chrome plugin that you're able to use. So, for example, for Disney, for Netflix, YouTube, to be able to watch a picture-in-picture interpretation uh, in ASL while you're watching that film. I mean, youth aren't going to be able to understand everything with the closed captioning in English, so it's great to have full access, especially for children watching
Ah,
those Disney films.
okay. So you use that extension to watch Moana. Was it good? Was it a good interpretation for you? Okay,
So I am actually the signer for Moana. So I'm the
that's what
person
I
in that
was.
picture. So when
Oh,
they
okay, I was
download
questioning
Moana
that.
1 and 2 and they use that plugin, it'll be my face in that picture in picture.
Oh, that's very exciting. So Jojo, you're a movie star for the deaf community, sort of.
Oh, yes. Yo, that's what I'm really excited about. We want to be able to have a one-stop shop for deaf community and hearing communities uh, to be able to see deaf Pacific Islander representation in projects such as Moana, right? To be able to see that we are represented there in places that we need to have a seat at the table. And so we often have this conversation of, do we know anybody who would match this demographic to be able to provide opportunities for them? So that is the national organization that I was referring to get that set
Oh,
up.
oh, that's very interesting. So that doesn't exist yet, but it will because of Jojo and
It
others.
will be set up. Uh, it was based on a conversation that I had with a few individuals, right? So the National Black Organization, Deaf Latinas or Latinos, and being able to set up my own specific to Deaf Pacific Islanders.
Oh, very cool. Okay. Um, what advice would you give to hearing individuals who want to be better allies and more inclusive in their interactions with deaf individuals?
Don't be afraid. reach out, approach us. We don't bite. Uh, and if you're learning sign language, take it take advantage of that opportunity, right? We want to work with you. Uh, like you just gave a perfect example, actually, like how to be an ally, how to be more inclusive, right? Inviting us on a
Yeah.
podcast, right? Giving us a voice, giving us an opportunity to be involved.
I was excited when Anne Norman suggested that I have you on my show. I had never had the opportunity given to me like this. And there are so many people that I would like to have on the show that I'm not necessarily looking for any one person. They're usually people that approach me and say, I've got something I need the world to know about. So I was thrilled that you were one of those people that came across into my reality. So very, very delighted that I made your
Same.
acquaintance.
I share that delightment.
Very nice. Um, just so everybody listening to this podcast understands that the voice that you're hearing is actually JoJo's interpreter, Nathan, who is, if you're watching this on YouTube, you will see a handsome young man who is conversing in American Sign Language with JoJo. And he is then speaking in of her voice for her so that I can understand what she is saying and so that you can hear so that we can communicate with JoJo. So if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you'll just notice that there are some delays in and that I'm talking a little bit more slowly than I normally do, which is not a bad thing. And we're getting close to the end of the questions, and I could probably talk to JoJo all day because I have 1,000 questions for her and her husband. So we're going to get them back on the show again at a later date. But we'll move on to our next question, which is in looking ahead, JoJo, what are your hopes and aspirations for the future of deaf advocacy and the broader deaf community? What are you hoping to see?
I hope to see more opportunities out there, more seats at the table in every field. That is something that I see as a gap today. I mean, it's 2025. So we really need to leverage those opportunities and open doors to be able to allow other individuals to really fill in those seats.
It makes a lot of sense. And for the listeners of Pep Talks with Jeannie, what is one key takeaway you'd like them to have regarding the deaf experience and the importance of inclusivity? Is there anything that we need to know? Is there anything that we can do as part of your community to make life easier for you?
Don't assume. Don't be afraid to approach us, interact with us. We want to be able to share our space, our experiences, our culture. I think that's going to be one key takeaway that I hope listeners really leave here with. That continue on the conversation, approach us. And remember, we don't bite. Plus, we hope for any child who is born deaf, remember, not all hope is lost. They can be beyond successful.
Oh, that's a beautiful message. That really is. I love that, JoJo. And that goes for anything that you're born with that is a challenge in your life. Life isn't over. You've just got another mountain to climb. And we all have challenges in life. And if you think you have a perfect life, well, that can change in a heartbeat. I can tell you that much. I know from personal experience. And one day everything is great, and the next day it's not. And especially when you have kids, you never know. You could have a child that's deaf. You could have a child that's gay. You could have a child that's blind. You could have a child that's obnoxious. there are worse things than, than being deaf and blind. I'll tell you. There's personality disorders that you can have that are much worse. So, my point is that we all have our challenges in this life, and if the only challenge you have is being deaf, you are so lucky. So lucky. Have have you ever had or seen a situation where there are deaf and blind people in the same family? How does, yeah, I imagine it's not, I mean, if you can find a deaf Pacific Islander, I'm sure you could find a family that has that intersection as well with blind and deaf people. I'd love to get someone in that family on my show. What is that like?
Right?
I think we do.
Yeah, if I know anybody, I will definitely make sure I forward them your way. Uh, are you asking specifically being deaf and blind, or a single
Yeah.
individual is deaf and then a separate individual is blind in the same
Either
family?
way, I mean, it could be a lot more challenging than just having one person in the family that is deaf. I actually have a childhood friend whose both parents were deaf and both of their children were hearing, and they managed just fine. Yeah. I didn't interact with their parents, but they were hearing. So, it didn't affect me at all. But I imagine that, that could be very challenging or very interesting to watch that now as an adult to see what it was like for those deaf parents trying to deal with kids. Must have been. And hey, have you thought about that for yourself? Um, if you had a choice between having a deaf child or a hearing child, what would be easier for you? What would your choice be?
I get that question actually all the time, and my response is not to sound negative or whatever, but
Hmm.
if I was born deaf, and oh, I was born deaf, and I know all the challenges. I know what it's like to
Yeah.
be, right? And I
Hmm.
had a great childhood, and I've become the strong person that I am today. But the answer I give people is I'd want a hearing child. Again, don't let it scare you. Uh, and if you do have a deaf child, remember language is key, right? But whether they're deaf or hearing, uh, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day, right? And
Yeah,
learn
it
ASL, learn
does.
to communicate, right? For me, right, I wanted to communicate with my parents, and I'd rather use sign language all the way for that.
Yeah. I guess when I think about like being deaf or blind or whatever your child may be born with, as some challenges are obvious and some are not. I mean, I didn't know when I had my son that one day he would tell me that he was gay. And that was a challenge. That was a challenge more for me as a parent because I was afraid and he did not understand what he needed to be afraid of, but I did as an adult in this world. I knew. So, that being said, there are a lot of different challenges that your child can have, and some of them we see very evidently as they're growing up, and some become more obvious when they get older. And being deaf is definitely not the worst thing that can happen to somebody. And there are plenty of people that become deaf as adults. I mean, I think my dad is deaf. He hasn't heard anything I've said in the last 10 years. So, and he can hear. So,
Absolutely. Like my message to everyone is there's other things, right? Being worse than being deaf, but we all
mhm,
have our unique challenges, right? But when I look at my challenge, I was so grateful for my mother who gave me language, who allowed me to be independent, allowed me to explore the world around me, right? And that's just not only
mhm.
to people who are deaf, but we really look back to parenting and being able to instill some of those lessons. So my parent, like you were saying that you were scared about your son, right? The best thing you can do as a parent. Again, I'm not a mom yet, so uh, but what I believe is do your best, right? Raise good kids. Let them be independent. Build confidence within them, and they'll move on to do fantastic and amazing things.
like you. So great.
Oh, thanks, mom and dad.
We've gone through all of our questions, but I'd love to spend a little bit of time to ask you more about your social media presence because I would like to make sure that anyone listening today, either in the deaf community or in the hearing community that is curious about learning more about JoJo, how do we make contact with you? You're on Instagram, right?
Hmm.
And the answer is yes.
I am.
And
I'm everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. Yeah. Yeah.
oh, amazing. And how much time every day do you spend working on your content creation for those platforms?
I would say 2 hours, 3 hours every day I dedicate to it. So first thing in the morning, uh, I wake up enthused, creative, and I just really give my full energy there. And then the rest of the day is working, and then after that, it's time with family.
That's great. And you said that you do social media for Sorensen. Is that
I do.
that's completely separate from your own personal social media?
Yep,
Oh, okay.
it is.
Okay, great. And the people that are looking at the Sorensen social media, are they going to be members of the deaf community?
Hmm.
And okay.
Yes, it's a very large community that
Oh,
Sorensen builds content for. Yep.
and yeah, and is it like worldwide, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Are there
We are an
platforms?
international company here in the US, and then also another company out in the UK that is a part of Sorensen.
Okay. And are there social media platforms that are specifically for use by the deaf community, or do you use the same ones that the everyone uses?
We use the same as the hearing audiences. I do notice a higher percentage of deaf community. This is the social media manager in me speaking, right? Um, but majority of them are on Instagram and Facebook is what we're noticing. Uh,
Mhm.
if it's a younger generation, right, 20s or teenagers, typically you can find them on TikTok.
And the social media that you create, I assuming incorrectly that there would not be any sound attached to it? How 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 do you interact with the hearing community?
Are you asking personally or for my managerial side with Sorensen?
Both.
Okay. So for Sorensen, it depends on what the content is. For most of the content, there's no sound. If it's focused to hearing demographics, we'll typically have a voiceover as well. While for mine personally, I try to be as accessible to anybody who's viewing it, right? I have visual descriptions because there's deaf blind communities out there who want to enjoy content as well. And they do enjoy mine, which is fantastic. Also, captioning, right? For my hearing friends, right? Majority of my followers are actually hearing. So I have captions for them to know what I'm saying. And I use an AI voiceover. It's not perfect, but I'm like, hey, at least it's something, right? I don't earn enough to be able to hire a voiceover professional, right? So I just do an AI voiceover for them. And hearing people prefer or feel more comfortable when there's a voiceover.
Is there anything else that you would like to add today for either the hearing community or the deaf community? Anything that we missed or that you'd like either community to know?
For the deaf community, you can do anything you set your mind to. Just keep going, keep at it. And for the hearing community, we are awesome to work with. Like, we are happy, more than happy, to have those conversations with you. Open it up, have those opportunities. We want to be there alongside you.
I love that. Um, I'm an attorney by profession, and I never saw any deaf lawyers.
Oh,
Not that it means that there aren't any. It seems like it would be a challenging career for somebody in the deaf community to have to communicate under such a stressful environment, such as a courtroom. Uh, would you be on a jury? Could you be on a jury? Or is that something that would be too difficult?
no, that's funny you ask. There's an inside joke in the deaf community, right? Some people hate jury duty. So we always know that we can get out of it because we'll just like, hey, I'm deaf. And they're like, oh, no, 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 no. Yeah, we'll find somebody else to do it. And we're always like, all right, great. Whoo, dodge that, right? Uh, but I normally call and I'm like, hey, are you going to provide an interpreter? They're like, oh, no. But at the same time, I'm like, maybe that's not a great thing for us to be doing,
I
right?
don't
Like,
think
we
I
should
don't
be
think
showing
so.
them, like, hey, we want to work along you. But
Yeah,
I personally want to avoid the legal landscape. But as an attorney, specifically a deaf attorney, that's funny. In high school, I actually wanted to become an attorney. That is something that I wanted to do. I loved the courtroom, but I thought to myself, that's a lot of work. And I have to 100% trust the interpreters to voice everything exactly as I'm expressing it. So I didn't pursue that career. Clearly, that's why I'm here as a social media manager for Sorensen. But my friend is an attorney, actually. I don't know what specific field they're in or what type of law they practice. But there are deaf attorneys out there. You just got to find them.
yeah.
So if you ever want a deaf attorney on your podcast, I'll reach out.
Believe me, if anybody out there is deaf, blind, um, or has any other challenge that I'm not aware of, other than being obnoxious, I don't need any more of that in my life. Please reach out to Pep Talks with Jeannie because we want to shine a light on people who overcome their challenges. And I don't know if JoJo is a one in a million that has overcome challenges in the deaf community, or if she's just like all of the other deaf people that overcome their challenges. Um, but I think that it's really important for us as a world to acknowledge that we are all challenged and to try to step into the shoes of other people, whether it's deaf people, whether it's people of another country, people of another religion, another gender, whatever it may be. It's important for us to consider what life would be like if this world wasn't created for people that are seeing, that are hearing, that are walking, that are talking, that are able to dress themselves. This world was designed for people that can do everything that humans can do. And if it wasn't, it would be very challenging for all of us. And we are lucky that we have the fewer challenges we have in life, the luckier we are. But we don't choose our challenges, but we do choose how we respond to them. And I am feel very lucky that I got to meet JoJo and learn and see the beautiful smile on this young woman's face. And I can see that she is happy, that she's productive, she's married, she has great relationships. I see that. So, in my mind, JoJo has it all.
Oh, well, thank
Yeah.
you. And
Thank
if
you
I
for being
ever
here.
have a down day, I'm just gonna watch this episode again and again.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Me too. Me too. Yeah. Mhm.
Me
Yeah.
too. Well, thank you. Can I teach you a sign? Do you
Oh,
know the sign for
please.
thank you? Maybe.
Mm,
It's
no, no.
this. Thank you.
Oh, oh, oh. Can I learn more?
Absolutely.
Oh, where can I learn
Like
more?
you said, me too, right? It's like this, the Y
Oh,
hand shape, and you say me too,
oh, that's much easier. And it makes sense. It makes so much sense.
right?
Mhm. It's great. I hope that everyone, they're speaking to each other, so we're going to be polite with that. Okay. Um, what I wanted to ask you is, in closing up today, I wanted to ask you when we can get you and your husband on for a little bit more chat, maybe in the near future, maybe after we get this one on. And then we can field some questions from our audience. So if you're listening and you have any questions for JoJo, we will field those here. You can send them to me on my website, and which is PeppTalksWithJeannie.com, www.PeppTalksWithJeannie.com. You can send us your questions for JoJo, and we'll make sure that we ask her those next time we've got her here. And maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to get Nathan the interpreter on someday. I'd love to know why this handsome young man who could be modeling for GQ magazine is here signing as an interpreter for JoJo.
That's what I tell him.
Oh, it was so nice having you both here. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. And I think it's going to be a great episode.
And I completely agree. Thank you for having us here.
Oh,
I've
it's
loved
been
this
great.
conversation, and we will only get better from this.
Absolutely. Is there anything that you would like to plug? Is there anything that you would like my audience to see or hear or do? Is there anything that we can do?
Come say hi, follow me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, et cetera, et cetera. That's at Jojo Savea.
Yes. And that's Jojo Savea, Savea. Very simple. So you can find her on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and who knows, maybe the big screen someday.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
All right, we're going to
Yes,
sign out now.
alongside Jason Momoa, right?
Yes, for
Or
sure.
Dwayne The Rock
Uh,
Johnson, one of those two.
yeah, yeah, yeah. How did we do
You and
it?
me. Yeah, me too. You and me.
Yes. Okay, great. So good, so good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being my guest. All right. I'm going to say goodbye. We're going to sign out.
Hashtag Blaze It Forward is a campaign my family started in 2018 after our son Blaze was murdered. Hashtag Blaze It Forward provides the inspiration to thousands of people to repair the world with intentional acts of kindness. If you would like to learn more about Blaze and how you can make a difference, check out www.blazebernstein.org or join our Facebook group at hashtag Blaze It Forward. You can also check out my website for this podcast at www.PeppTalksWithJeannie.com. There you can follow along with my podcasting adventures and learn more about my fascinating guests and their passion projects. I would like to thank all of the volunteers who help make my philanthropic endeavors a reality. Today, that includes my producer, Eli Moskowitz, all of the volunteer crew members who join us, and a special thank you to my son Jay Bernstein for the original theme song you hear at the beginning and ending of each show. This has been another episode of Pep Talks with Jeannie. Until next time, keep on making this world a better place.